I'm going to start out with a poem. I start all my readings with the same poem. I did a residency once with a group of sixth graders in Miami. I'm lucky enough to have the woman who invited me was in my class today. And I've never forgotten those kids. And this was written for a little girl named Nicole, who I always remember. The area that I was in had a high incidence of drug use, so a lot of the kids had lost parents or siblings to AIDS. I do it first in all my readings because it reminds me of why I write poetry in the first place, that it has the power to move you from one place in your head to a safer place. And that's what I was asking it to do for these children. This is dedicated to the sixth grade class at Lily C. Evans Elementary School in Dade County, Miami. I am astonished at their mouthful names: Lacanicia, Chevalane, DeLeo, Fumaleo, their ragged rebellions and lip gloss pouts, and all those pants drooped as drapery. I rejoice when they kiss my face, whisper wet and urgent in my ear, make me their obsession because I have brought them poetry. They shout me raw, bruise my wrist with their pulling, and brashly claim me as mama as they cradle my head in their little laps, waiting for new words to grow in my mouth. You. Angry, jubilant, weeping poets, we are all saviors, reluctant hosannas in the limelight, but you knew that, didn't you? So let us bless this sixth grade class. 40 cracking voices, 40 nappy heads, and all of them raise their hands when I ask. They have all seen the Reaper, grim in his heavy robe, pushing the button for the Dead Project elevator, begging for a break at the corner pawn shop, cackling wildly in the back pew of the Baptist church. I asked the death question, and 40 fists punched the air. Me! And O'Neill, matchstick crack child, watched his mother's body become a claw. And 9-year-old Tico Jefferson, barely big enough to lift the gun, fired a bullet into his throat when Mama bended his back with a lead pipe. Tamika cried into a sofa pillow when Daddy blasted Mama into the north wall of their cluttered one-room apartment. Danya's cousin, gone in a drive-by, dark window, click, click, gone, says Danya, her tiny finger a barrel, the thumb a hammer. I am astonished at their losses. And yet when I read a poem about my own hard-eyed teenager, Jeffrey asks, is he dead yet? Cannot be comprehended. An 18-year-old still pushing and pulling his own breath. And 40 faces pity me, knowing that I will soon be as they are, numb to our bloodied histories, favoring the Reaper with a thumbs up and a wink, hearing the question and shouting, me, Miss Smith, I know somebody dead. Can poetry hurt us, they ask me, before crawling into my words to sleep? I love you, Nicole says. Nicole wearing my face, pimples peppering her nose, and she is as black as angels are. Nicole's braids kissed with match flame to seal them. And can you teach me to write a poem about my mama, Miss Smith? I mean, you write about your daddy, and he's dead. Can you teach me to remember my mama? The teacher tells me this is the first time Nicole has admitted that her mother is gone. Murdered by slim silver needles and a stranger rifling through her blood, the virus pushing her skeleton through for Nicole to see. And now this child with rusty knees and mismatched shoes sees poetry as her scream and asks me for the words to build her mother again, replacing the voice, stitching on the lost flesh. So poets, as we take the stage, as we flirt and sin and rejoice behind microphones, remember Nicole. She knows that we are here now, and she is an empty vessel waiting to be filled. And she is waiting, and she is waiting. And she waits. My favorite segment of the population are old black men, because they've seen everything, and you can Miles is like, yo, all right. because they've seen everything and, nothing you can tell them is new. This is a poem for John Lee Hooker. It's called How to Be a Lecherous Little Black Man and Make Lots of Money. First, you got to get the blues. This is easy if you are a person of any gender and possess a pulse, a cheating lover, a stalking ex-lover, a used Yugo, a pumping heart, an empty wallet, a half-dead dog, an empty refrigerator, one last cigarette butt, a good memory, a nosy mama, a lonely room, a quick trigger, roving eyes, an addiction to whiskey, nothing but the clothes on your back, a Jones for your neighbor's wife, a Jones for your wife's neighbor, a positive test result, an itching to leave, an itching to stay, or any itching where there shouldn't be any. Rub your hands slow over your body, feel the valleys and the wrongs. Let misery chomp your spine toward collapsing. Let it fold your whole self double. Then you can walk like John Lee Hooker do. Click, shuffle, bent over, nose to the ground, wearing a cocked brim felt fedora that wouldn't dare fall off. Then you can think like John Lee do. I'm old as Victrola. Gotta buy a bottle of Mrs. Butterworth if I want to feel a woman, but I can still sing better than you. Okay, this is, it's called Sacrifice, and 28 Chilean women stripped naked in the middle of a busy road in Santiago to pay homage to Pablo Neruda. And then there's a line from one of Neruda's sonnets, naked you are as simple as one of your hands. Flustered, without license or sanction, the women clawed at whispered cotton and lopsided seam, pushed irritants to their ankles, and stood upright for whole seconds, just long enough for nipples to pimple in soft wind. Behind them, a home which once held his pens, his grimace acknowledging a tumbled phrase, earthquakes which grew pliant in him, and now 28 quick asses framed in the window. Much too rushed for structure, the photographer did what he could to stun the slow chaos. In the photo, heads were twisted, eyes in blink, pubic hair indistinct and shadowed. As sirens wailed, the women hurried into their clothing, blouses with nervy stink circles, skirts accordioned in haste. Their names were nothing, and they were rootless in their wandering away. There was no sense to their sacrifice until the night came and the poet's slow remembering hands returned for their souls. It's okay. It's for John Coltrane. It's for John Coltrane. I always shudder when I pray. Mama say the Lord enters you in stages, first like a lit match under your hands, then like an animal biting through bones with soft teeth. Mama say lie still and wait for glory to consume you, wrap its way into your map like a lover had his finger on paradise, knew the way with all his heart, then lost it. I always shudder when I pray. So your name must be a prayer. Saying your name colors my mouth, frees loose this river, changes my skin, turns my spine to string. I pray all the time now. Amen. Try not to touch me while I tell this. Try not to brush the thick tips of your fingers against my throat while my throat moves telling this story. Don't suddenly squeeze my bare shoulders or travel your mouth along the flat swell of my belly. Whatever you do, don't bite at the hollow in my back. Whisper touch my ankles or match our skin like spoons. Don't punctuate this rambling sentence with your tongue or trace your name on the backs of my legs. Please don't walk the question of your breath along my thighs or draw a map on my quivering breastbone guiding me to you, me to you, me to you. Do not play me that way. Don't play me that way, the way the sax man plays his lady, blowing into her mouth until she cries, allowing her no breath of her own. Don't play me that way, baby, the way the sax man plays his lady, that strangling, soft murder, notes like bullets, riffs like knives, and the downbeat slapping into her, and she sighs. Into her, and she cries. Into her, and she whines. shines like the night turning. Just let me sit here on the bar stool sipping something bitter. Let me cross my legs slow like the colored girls do, and let me feel your eyes go there. Let me feed on glory and grow fat. Meanwhile, lover, let's fill this wicked church with music. Let me lean into the song for once without your mouth on me. The music a lit match under my skin, and I dance. All legs and thunderous and heels too high. I dance cheap perfume and black nail polish. Shark-skinned congregation, heads pressed, attitudes too tight. Won't scream until it gets to be too much. Won't beg for mercy until I wreck the landscape with my hips. Bar stools filling. Everybody's waiting for the glory to move through me. Rock me with hosannas, shake me with hallelujahs to break these bored bones. They wait for you, supreme love, to pull me out onto the dance floor. Whisper come-ons in my ear. Make me kick my heels above my head, high heels above my nappy head. While I wait, I'll dance with the sax man. I will shimmer as he presses my keys. Him and me bopping, we are wicked church. So do not play, do not play. Did you hear me tell you do not play me that way? The way I prayed to be played? Mama say the Lord enters you in stages. Play me that way. First like a lit match under my skin. Play me that way. Then like an animal biting through bones with soft teeth. Play me. Mama say lie still and wait for glory. That way. To consume me. That way. Work my keys. That way. Work my keys. That way. Work my key. Wait a minute. Come on over here and press that key twice. That felt kind of good. Hold on. Don't pay me no mind, lover. I always shudder when I pray. Do you guys know when you go to airports and you see the pilots in the airport and they're always like, and you want to go so fucking what? You flew the plane. You know, and they're always looking at you, it's like, Anyway, this poem is called The Way Pilots Walk. Like their cocks and haunches are heavy with it. Arrogant past Starbucks and baggage claim, past flinching monitors and the sea gates, pilots stride navy increase, chiseled heads swiveling in bare tolerance of we, the ground bound. Their faces are chapped by a higher sun, their pompadours glossy and blade cut. They live a huger life awfully close to heaven where blessings begin. How smug are those little hats, dripping with mysterious medals, shaped like a salute to the men beneath them. We bear bowed, pissed witness to their dismissive sniffs, the oh so holier than thou with their hips. There's no bound script for that sexy moment when the wide sky inhales their laughable machines and folds their hurtling heartbeats into blue. So go on, join the club, envy their asses, and pray toward them. Every flyboy is your fate wearing a crisp little uniform. A quirk of pulse, a sleepless night, a flick of his wrist could kill you and 1,000 other yous. As maddening as it may be, there's just no answer to that strut. It says, fuck you, I've got the air. A while ago, I went to Paris to do poetry. And you know how when we go to another country, we try to act like we already know everything. You know Americans, I love us, but we're kind of weird. You know, it's just like, oh, I've been here, I've done that. It's like, so I went with my girlfriend, and we were like the crazy people. You know, when the Louvre closed, they had to like close it down and find us because there's this crazy Puerto Rican and black woman in the Louvre. And we were touching paintings and taking flash pictures of things that would crumble if you took flash pictures of it, and reaching across the barrier and going, ooh, I'm posing with Mona Lisa. So this is about the joy of discovery. It's called Doing the Louvre. You're a junkie just like I am. After we've dumped your husband in the Louvre's cafe to sip the steaming tea and chew on his poetry, we're off like schoolgirls, screeching in duet, dazzled by the bright eternal gasp of ancient things. We've got no business here, homegirl and compañera. We've got no business closing our mouths around this sharp, exquisite language or savoring the sweet tongue squeeze of pastries, shining cakes, and shaved chocolates. We are of simpler stock, city and country dust, collard greens, moon pies, bullet holes, and basement slow dances. We are shamelessly American, rough street girls with rusty knees, the flip side of cocky Parisian wisp and slim cashmere coats the color of tobacco. Girlfriend, you and I are too much screen for this place, but you're a junkie just like I am. Too long denied access to official beauty, we walk these streets with our mouths open and faces tilted up, swallowing everything, swallowing it all, much too much scenery and sound for our thin American throats. We gawk at cathedrals with their gargoyles bleached to an eerie snarl by bright slashes of moon. Say goodbye, we mean yes. Good morning, we mean how much. As for bread, we need the toilet. We are amazed that no one is asking for all of this back, that we are allowed to bask in this city's light. I can still hear my mama, as plain and practical as a cast iron skillet. Child, you need to stop all that foolishness over there in some France where you don't know nothing or nobody. Ain't no black folks over there no how. But I know you, old friend, with your bright burnished tangle of hair and deep laugh, and right now these halls belong to us. There are bad girls loose in the Louvre. Girls soft as gunshots. Girls nourished and fueled by silvers, silks, and the stone gaze of Napoleon. We laugh at the smashed noses of Egyptian rulers, stare at the tiny mummified feet of a young girl, mistake Goya for Gauguin, and rub what surfaces we can, including the marble cocks of towering deities. When we say things like, hey, I think I saw that on a postcard once, or, do you know how old this thing is? How can the world help but love us? We would give Venus our arms. After 8 hours clicking our hungry heels and snapping illicit flash photos in dark halls brimming with ancient music, we finally find the Mona Lisa, alone, caged and antiseptic behind that glass every woman wears, and we wonder how best to free her, knowing she's a junkie like we are. She longs for our wild voices, our naive, accidental beauty. She's aching to ditch that frame and skip these hallowed halls with the homegirls, mistake the obscene for the exquisite, and gaze at unsolved mysteries that just for once are not her own. This is, in the Close to Death book, is a book of some persona poems that I wrote for black men. And this is from that book. That's the persona poem called Undertaker. When a bullet enters the brain, the head explodes. I can think of no softer warning for the young mothers who sit doubled before my desk, nodding their smooth brown hands and begging, fix my boy, fix my boy. Here's his high school picture. In the mildly mustachioed player in the crinkled snapshot looks nothing like the plastic bag of boy stored and dated in the cold room downstairs. In the picture, he is cocky and chiseled, clutching the world by the balls. I know the look. Now he is flaps of cheek, slivers of jawbone, assorted teeth, a surprised eye, bloody tufts of napped hair, the building blocks of my business. So I turn the photo face down to talk numbers instead. The high price of miracles startles the young mother, but she is prepared. I know that she has sold everything she owns, that cousins and uncles have emptied their empty bank accounts, that she dreams of her baby in tuxedoed satin, flawless, in an open casket, a cross or blood-red rose tacked to his fingers, his halo set at a cocky angle. So I write a figure on a piece of paper and push it across to her. She stares at the number. Jesus. But Jesus isn't on my payroll. I work alone until the dim insistence of morning, gluing, stitching, creating a chin with a brushstroke. I plump shattered skulls, then paint the skin to suggest warmth and impending breath. I plop glass eyes into rigid sockets, then carve eyelids from a forearm and inner thigh. I reach into collapsed cavities to rescue a tongue, an ear. Lips are never easy to recreate. And I try not to remember the stories the mothers must tell me to ease their own hearts. Oh, they cry, my Ronnie, my Michael, my David, my Chico. He was on his way home, a dark car slowed down. They must have thought he was someone else. At a party, he stepped between two gang members. Really, he was trying to get off the streets. He was trying to pull away from the crowd. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Fix my boy. He was a good boy. Make him the way he was. But I have explored the jagged gaps in the boy's body, and I have soothed the angry edges of bullet holes. I have touched him in places no mother knows, and I have birthed his new face. I know he believed himself invincible, that he most likely hissed, "Fuck you, man," before the bullets lifted him off his feet. I try not to remember his swagger, his lizard-lidded gaze, his young mother screaming into the phone. She says that she will find the money to bury him. And I know that is the truth that fuels her, forces her to place one foot in front of the other. Suddenly, I want to take her down to the chilly room, open the bag, and shake its terrible bounty onto the gleaming steel table. I want her to see him, to touch him, to press her lips to the flap of cheek, because the woman needs to wither, finally, and move on. We both jump as the phone rattles in its hook. I pray it's my wife, a bill collector, a wrong number. But the wide, questioning silence on the other hand is too familiar. It's another mother needing a miracle. It's another homeboy coming home. Okay, thanks. I think I mentioned yesterday that my favorite poet was Stephen Dobbins, and also that for a long time I denied him. I wouldn't tell anybody he was my favorite poet because I didn't think that's what people expected. So this is a poem about that. For Stephen. I have stopped denying you. I am no longer Peter to your Jesus. I've forgiven you for not being a black woman, a black man, or a card-carrying member of some recognized creative tribe. When some wide-eyed ingenue needed to know my favorite poet before they could choose their own, it would have been smooth slide to name a wordsmith of mirror hue and be done with it. And for a time, that's what I did, pushing your voodoo deeper to my center while I shuffled saviors, Komanyaka, Hughes, Dove, Brooks, or traced my life to the word work of common men, the welders, cabbies, typists, pump jockeys, and could-be killers who populate the open mics because their lives shove them to babbling. You noted my deception, squeezed hard on my heart, because you knew. You were there the day Jimmy Canole ripped an ill-fitting afro wig from my head and my skin and voice came away with it. You were there when 4 white men from the Chicago Board of Education locked me in a windowless room and said, "Girl, write. Write something right now because you are too black and too stupid to know the words you know, so you must be cheating." You smell that iron stench that thick blood leaves, and you saw my father, face down, bleeding blue into a dingy oriental carpet. Who let you in, Stephen? Who taught you me? Who gave you permission to give me permission to scream in your key? Elicit my unbearable secret, I claim you now aloud. I say in no uncertain language that you lifted me to this now, my beacon, my rock star. In this world that insists upon real, your words should have never touched me, and mine should have never reached for you. There was history to consider. I shouldn't have zeroed in on your yelps across the chasm, but I did, instantly hungering for more of that slap language, scrawling pictures of you in my head, pictures where you were always too short, too whispered, too incredibly white, your back always turned to my craving. I reached for you so hard that finally I conjured you, and there you were, standing for days it seemed, and taking my hand, and I stared at you, so large in my heart by then you could have killed me by saying, hey, I don't know you at all. Would you like to hear a relatively long poem about People magazine interviewing Olive Oyl, Popeye's girlfriend? Yeah, that, and then I'll end with, I'll do one more after that, and then I'll be done. That should be, well, we'll see. Okay. Really? You want to hear Olive Oyl? Tom's over there going, no, no. Popeye's in here. I always wondered who Olive Oyl was, you know, and why she let Ludo mess with her as much as he did, and she kept coming back for more. And, you know, then Popeye was over there. And who was Sweet Pea? Whose baby was Sweet Pea? She's carried around, I think it was Wimpy's baby. You know? Anyway, so this is called Olive Oyl Talks to People magazine. If you must know me, first know this. I was born a bone child, a bleached confusion of sticks clattering from my mother's womb, ribs fused gently around a sputtering heart. No milk moved in the woman who made me, so I lie in her thin arms, sucking the thought of the sea from her skin. My father was a stevedore, wrists of dust, his skinny pink neck bulging with push and pull, heft and release. My mother grew weak trying to love him, searching for the rhythms of water in the way his sour body folded around sleep, his demands for sex, more potatoes. She sat at the window, watching real sailors. He blossomed as her body cramped with me. He was praying for a boy, muscles he could tame, a fool who'd believe he was seaworthy. But then I came, blanched, sickly, slick with blood and effort, hair as black and flat as a seal's. He never held me and only touched me once, his fingers tangling in my sparse pubic hair, then pulling away, startled, disgusted, thrilled. Perhaps he hoped I could be a man, but he went no further because he only called himself a sailor. Early one morning, as he helped a crew unload the windswept, his heart splintered and burst, his body falling only inches from the sea he'd sworn to possess before he died. His mouth filled with earth and chips of wood. My mother screamed, refused food, and followed. I was left alone in the house of my birth, a battered wooden shell ravaged by wind and salt. My wide eyes were trained on the waterline, watching the rickety ships bob and pivot, hearing the raw shouts, the thick voices of mariners. I was still a stick interrupted by knees, ending in huge feet caged in black shoes. I pulled my hair tight, looped a red ribbon through the floppy bun, powdered koi circles on pale cheeks. I stuffed napkins into the front of my dress and pranced the shore, a sacrifice of toothpicks. I wanted the man my father had wanted to be, a man of the sea, drunk with horizons. The rumbling one came first. All sinew and teeth, his arms were tree trunks, muscles screaming inside stiff cotton clothing. His real name didn't matter. The men barked, "Bluto!" and the hard syllables swirled in my head. A look from him would have curled my father, made my mother rise and press her face against the window. The helpless air crackled when he was in it, sparks stinging my skin, currents bristling my hair. Love made me dance around him, silly with want, my hard black brogans clicking on the dock. My wretched waltz amused, then confused him, until he could not imagine the night without me. Ribs tightened around my sputtering heart. No music, no tentative fingers. He took me like a windstorm, left me rattled and sore. His brash laughter boomed, and a crowd gathered at my window to watch him suck tiny red stars into the skin of my throat. He took me propped against the wall, pinned to the rough wooden floor, in the chipped porcelain bathtub, against the icebox, from the front, from behind, with his mouth and with his cock veined as a horse's neck. I wept with love and bled into his cupped hand. When he left, I went with him, thinner than when I began, but wanting the sea and that man more than anything. He passed me to his drooling men, roped me to the bow, laughed at my longing. On faraway islands bursting with color I could smell, he starved me, tied me to tree trunks, teased my body with tigers. Each night he rewarded my devotion, biting into my skin with yellowed teeth, another letter of his name carved into my skinny soul. Soon he would love me more than water. But one raucous midnight, while I prayed no train would come rumbling down the tracks I was tied to, the ropes loosened and I was swept up by arms I didn't know. I looked up into a comical squint of eyes, smelled the musk of his panting, and wondered what seas this man had seen. If Bluto was tidal wave, Popeye was ripple. Bald, nearly blind, bubble-cheeked, a rotting pipe teetering on his bottom lip, my savior. As if I had asked to be saved. I hated him, his giddy, toothless smile, that stupid giggle, his bulging cartoon forearms. When he saw my scars, he blubbered like a baby, weeping at my histories of torn skin, not recognizing the signposts of love. I fell asleep counting while his mouth touched each one. I had no place for him in my crazy life, yet there he was. When he loved me, laying me down as if I were a rose, my wounds found new skin. I was too beautiful to be me. But now my life borders on slapstick. I walk into traps, tumble into rushing rivers, one-eyed ogres dangle me over spitting volcanoes. Bluto snatches me from Popeye's bed, slams his wand into me, threatens me with blades. Popeye gobbles what he can of the earth and risks his life to find me, beats Bluto senseless, and then it all begins again. My body stretches between them, thinner than ever. Popeye wants to marry me, make an honest woman out of a hot, bony stevedore's daughter. Bluto lights a match, holds it to my nipple. You ask how I can love them both, how these bones have carried them for so long. If you must know, first know this. I was raised by the water, crafted by these tides, a stick child, never wise or beautiful. Whatever I loved the water first, and I will die possessing these sailing men who fight over my frail body, craving my flesh and neglecting the sea. I write a lot of persona poems, and when I go into schools, I tell kids, listen to the voices in your neighborhood because you never know where you'll find a poem. And when I was a kid, my father used to take me to the barber shop with him. And then when my son was small, I used to take him to the barber shop. And it's like the same barber. I don't know if you know about barbers in a Saturday morning in black neighborhood. I guess most of you don't. But I don't know, maybe barbers are like this all over. They gossip a lot, they talk about everybody. And everybody that passes by the window, they talk about them, and sometimes they forget you're sitting there and they start talking about you. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, sorry, So this is like, this voice stayed in my head. This is Barbara in Chicago by the name of Terrell, and that's who this poem is inspired by. But it could be any barber anywhere, and they always talk about how much they're getting, and they're not getting any. They haven't gotten any since the Eisenhower administration. But they're like, oh, I gotta get some of that. Oh, It's like, okay. Anyway, so this is it. Well, look who comes walking into my barbershop still wearing that jerry curl. Man, it's 2000. Ain't nobody got no time for that grease trickling all down their neck, especially hot as it is out there. Come here, let me cut that stuff down. Let those naps grow out. A couple of weeks, I'll hook you up with a fade. The sisters don't like putting their hands in that greasy mess. And did y'all see that child Aretha on stage at the president's thing, trailing all that fur like she's Queen Elizabeth and all that fat underneath it? I ain't never seen no black woman with money stay fat. Chickens see her coming, even the bones get scared. That child will eat a spaghetti strap. What's that song she sang, Ain't No Way? Well, I guess it sure ain't. She got one chance, though. If you stay alive long enough, time will make you skinny. I just don't know if she got that much time. Oh, yeah, there go that gal I was telling y'all about. Got enough ass to bound to drink on. I'm going to be knee-deep in that come Saturday night, and my name ain't Terrell Anderson Jr., and I got my hand tussling in y'all nappy head. Man, she don't know me yet, but she will. I bet she done already heard about how my love-making done put a few sisters on crutches. How I done whipped some of this nature on them, now they drooling, barking like dogs. Hell, y'all can laugh if y'all want. Thomas, you ask your sister. And you over there, ask your mama. They say size don't matter, but it do if it's this size, man. I have to bind this to my leg, it would scare y'all out of here. Come next week, y'all can ask that gal y'all just seen. She be passing by that window in a wheelchair. Mark my words. And Thomas, one too many times I done seen your wife over there across the street in the butcher shop, and the meat she asking for ain't what makes it to your table for supper. She's over there behind the counter like she's interested in the butcher's business. What she's interested in is the butcher's business. And you better start asking yourself why. You better start taking care of business at your own home, my man, before she get a taste of that sausage she's selling. Then you'll be up here talking about, she gone, she gone. Man, I'm telling you, women are liberated nowadays. You can't be climbing up on top of them, poking them like you got somewhere else to be in 5 minutes. And every time you get a chance, there you are up in the Continental sniffing all up Deborah Ann's young butt like she wants something from you beside that money you always waving around. Man, let me tell you, anytime you see flies buzzing around a woman, and it ain't summer, it's time to move on to another woman. I don't know, your wife got some nice legs on her though, man. That butcher don't take up on it. I might get in line. Hey, and you, what's wrong with your boy? He ain't got no woman. Damn near 40 years old, no woman in sight. Could be he just ugly though. You know, the other night I heard a blind woman turning him down. Said she could just imagine how ugly he was. When you over there talking about some activator, man, you better activate your head under this razor and let me cut that stuff out of there. This 2000, man, well, let me straighten it out for you. Black man free now. Superfly done flew. I've been doing this 40 years. This is Terrell's Afrocentric Barbershop Fade Palace and Wild Style Emporium. Now put your ass in my chair and put your head in my hands. This is my last poem, and I'm so thrilled to be here. It's wonderful. Thank you, and I hope this is a yearly event, and I would love to come back and help and read or whatever. Thanks. I talked about my father yesterday, and my dad and I had a ritual. My father taught me how to cook, and the first thing he taught me how to cook was something called hot water cornbread. Folks are like, black people are like, oh yeah. So like hot water cornbread, and so I really treasured that. I really treasured that ritual. So this piece is for him. The recipe for hot water cornbread is simple. Cornmeal, hot water. Mix till sluggish, then dollop in a sizzling skillet. When you smell the burning begin, flip it. When you smell the burning begin again, dump it onto a plate. You've got to wait for the burning and get it just right. Before the bread cools down, smear it with sweet salted butter and smash it with your fingers. Crumble it up in a bowl of collard greens or buttermilk. Forget that I'm telling you it's the first thing I ever cooked, that my daddy was laughing and breathing and no bullet in his head when he taught me. Mix it till it looks like quicksand, he'd say, till it moves like a slow song sounds. We'd sit there in the kitchen in the half dark, licking our fingers and laughing at my mother, who was probably scrubbing something with bleach or watching Bonanza or thinking how stupid it was to be burning that nasty old bread in that cast iron skillet. She always used whole milk and eggs and baked her cornbread until it was plump and sugary. And she branded me hopeless as a homemaker, too damned interested in sitting in the kitchen in the half dark, learning nothing at all from a man who had other women and stayed out late on Saturday nights. When I told her that I'd fixed my first ever pan of hot water cornbread and that my daddy had branded it glorious, she sniffed and kept mopping the floor over and over in the same space. So here's how you do it. You take out a bowl, like the one we had with blue flowers and only one crack. You put the cornmeal in it. Then you turn on the hot water and you let it run while you tell the secret about the boy who kissed your cheek after school, or about how you really want to be a reporter instead of a teacher or a nurse like Mama said. And the water keeps running while Daddy says you will be a wonderful writer and you will be famous someday. And when you get famous, if I wrote you a letter and sent you some money, would you write about me? And he is laughing and breathing and no bullet in his head. So you let the water run into this mix until it moves like mud moves at the bottom of a river, which is another thing Daddy said. And even though I'd never even seen a river, I knew exactly what he meant. Then you turn the fire way up under the skillet, and you pour in this mix that moves like mud moves at the bottom of a river, like quicksand, like a slow song sounds. That stuff pops something awful when it first hits that blazing skillet. And Daddy and I would dance to those angry pop sounds. He'd let me rest my feet on top of his while we waltzed around the kitchen, and my mother huffed and puffed on the other side of the door. When you are famous, Daddy asked me, will you write about dancing in the kitchen with your father? I say everything I write will be about you. Then you will be famous too. And we dip and swirl and spin, but then he stops and sniffs the air. The thing you have to remember about hot water cornbread is to wait for the burning so you know when to flip it. And then again so you know when it's crusty and done. Then eat it the way we did, with our fingers, our feet still tingling from dancing. But remember that sometimes the burning takes such a long time. And in that time, sometimes, poems are born. Thank you.